Hi, good morning, and welcome to the second part of the Hibernate tutorial. So, just to recap, we are going through the JDBC guide on how the low level in Java works of accessing database and inserting and consuming the actual data. So the plan for today is to continue working on the rest of the tutorial and to jump over to Hibernate tutorial itself. So now the last time we traversed the result set and printed out the results we got. Now we'll see how to execute SQL insert statement. So we'll use also prepared statement. Let me comment out the thing we done so far, and we'll leave the connection and let's go prepare statement will be connection dot prepare statement, and statement will be insert into users. So insert into table users. What columns? First name and last name values, and we said that the placeholder for values are question marks, semicolon. Okay, and statement, let's set string one. First name one. This parameter index, it's a bit strange because it doesn't start from 0, it actually starts from 1, and as you know, in programming arrays everything starts from 0. So on first place we'll insert John. This is the first placeholder, and the next on second parameter will be Rambo. Okay. Int inserted rows statement execute and execute update, and execute update will actually return an integer, executes the SQL statement in prepare statement object, which must be SQL data manipulation language such as insert, update, or delete, or a SQL statement that returns nothing such as DDL element. Either returns either 1, the row count for SQL data manipulation language statement, or 2 or 0 for SQL statement that return nothing. Okay, let's do this. System out. I just inserted the rows plus users. Okay, and let's run this now. It inserted one user, and we can actually use the method we used before for reading out the database. First name, get first name. Last name, get last name. It only has one. This is strange. We have a valid connection. And even though we inserted the user, nothing will happen. Let's connect to our database with user test, password is test, select Everything from users has two entries, Philip Meter, John Rambo and John Rambo, but this one, execute query, select, oh, this is because I had a where clause. This is why it only brings us one result. So if we want to see all the results, we'll remove the where clause, select everything from users, and let's see what's happening now. Okay, now it outputs Philip and 2 times John Rambo. And let's delete the second John Rambo. Delete from users where ID equals 3. And now it should output only 2 of those. Okay, great. So let's break it down. Inserting rows into database is somehow similar to selecting rows. Again, you create a prepare statement with the only difference that you can call the execute update method on statements. Don't get thrown off by the name, there is no execute insert. Once more, you should use a prepared statement with placeholders to safeguard against SQL injection. You won't have to traverse through result sets with inserts. Instead, execute update will return you the actual number of inserted rows, 1 in our case if everything worked correctly. How to execute SQL update statements. Let's update John Rambo. Again, prepared statement, update statement. Maybe I can make static methods so this will be easier, so I don't have to comment it out. Public static void, and let's call it update data, and it will receive the connection that I need for this. Also the insert, public static void insert data, it will also have a connection, and I'll just copy this, paste it here, remove the comments. Okay, let's refactor this. I don't care about this is valid. To connection, connect, oh, set string, it has to stay. And this one will just throw the exception. Add exception to OK. And this one also throws SQL exception. This is for inserting. Okay. Let's now do one for the reading. Public static void read data. It will have connection parameter, and it also throws SQL exception. And let's just have it for reading the data. I'll rename the connection. It just selects everything from the user. Okay, great. And let's write the updating one. Prepare statement, update statement. It will have connection, prepare statement, update, users, set first name, to unknown, where ID equals question mark. Okay, and update statement. Just refactor this. Update statement dot set integer, set first name to unknown, where ID, first parameter ID will be 2. I'll change the Rambo, and update the rows, update statement, execute, update. Okay, and print out I just updated rows, users. Okay, now if I call update data with connection and then read data with connection, it should update this Rambo user and set its name to unknown first name and then print it out. Okay, first name Philip, last name Meter, and first name unknown, last name Rambo. And let's change it to Rambo again. It's hard-coded now, but it's just like testing out the JDBC. This is not how you code the actual application. This is just like a playground. Updating rows is basically identical to inserting rows. You create a prepare statement and execute the update on it. Once more, you should use prepare statement with question mark placeholder to safeguard against SQL injection. Execute update will not return your actual number of updated rows. Will now return, sorry. How to execute SQL delete statements. SQL delete statements are exactly the same as SQL updates when it comes to the JDBC. Let's do public static void delete data. It will have connection and prepared statement, delete statement. Delete statement equals connection, prepare statement, delete from users where ID equals question mark. I hope this is correct syntax. Where ID greater than question mark. Okay, I'll just, it doesn't matter. This has to throw SQL exception. It doesn't have to, you can catch it, but for easier to have it easier way, I'll do it just like this. And then delete statement, set integer. The first placeholder will be, and I'll delete the Rambo because it has the ID of 2. In deleted rows, delete statement, execute update, and I just deleted plus deleted rows, users. Okay, let's do delete data, and after running this, only Philip should stay in a database, and this is the case. Let's do insert, so we'll bring Rambo back. Oh, delete and insert. Okay, let's do insert data and select read data. Okay, now we have 2x John Rambo. Let's delete data. Probably his ID is now different, so this is why I don't see it. Let's delete with ID 5. And I want to delete data and to read data. Okay, this is it. What is JDBC connection pool? Opening and closing database connections thing, TCP sockets and connections, like you did above with the driver manager get connection, this one. It takes time. Especially in web applications, you do not want to open a fresh database connection for every single user action. Rather, you want to have a small pool of connections that are always open and shared between users. I think where I work, we use it's called Hikari connection pool, but I won't go ahead. That's what JDBC connection pools are for. A connection pool keeps open a small number of database connections, like 10, and instead of opening up database connection yourself, you'll ask the connection pool to give you one of these. What is the best JDBC connection pool? Unfortunately, in Javaland, you are hammered with plethora of options when it comes to the connection pools. Older legacy ones are Apache Commons, Hikari, which is recommended, this one that I use at my workplace. Okay, the issue with the older connection pools is that they lack proper sane configuration defaults, have trouble with performance and handling error cases, and are on top often misconfigured. Therefore, for newer projects, I would recommend the following pools. Hikari as a great default choice. Hikari is Spring Boot default choice. Use Oracle UCP if you're working with Oracle database. All of the connection pools are rock solid, performant, and offer sane defaults and error handling. How to use the JDBC connection pool? Independent of the option you choose, you will then in your JDBC code not open that connection yourself through driver manager, but rather you'll construct a connection pool represented by the data source interface and ask it to give you one of its connections. Let's see some code. It is exactly the same code as above, connecting to MySQL, only rewritten to use data source instead of a driver manager. Okay, let's create a static method that will make it private static data source. It's also in a SQL package. Create data source. Okay, Hikari data. I'll probably need data source. New Hikari. I'll need to add it to the Maven Hikari data source. Okay, consent. Let's use the latest one. Let's add dependency for this. So in a POM XML, you add the dependency for Hikari, reload the Maven, and now it should be available. It is. And this is Alt Enter. Okay, new Hikari data source. Okay, data source set JDBC URL, and it's JDBC column Postgres PostgreSQL colon // localhost port 5432 and database its test. Okay, data source set username to test and data source set password to test and return the data source. And now on the beginning of the application, I just call data source equals create data source. Now it's creating the data source, and then connection is just data source get connection. Okay, and everything stays the same. I can now try to read the data. Okay, start Hikari, edit connection, start completed. So you need to create a connection pool data source somewhere in your application. Here we extract the creation to another method. This is Hikari connection pool probably, specific configuration code. In the end, though, we simply set the same parameters we would have set on driver manager get connection call. As you can see, you don't directly open connections anymore through the driver manager, but you ask data source instead. Yes, before this, we had get connection. Okay. This we did. Okay, we extract the creation code to the another method. This Hikari connection pool configuration code. In the end, okay, we read this. As you can see, you don't directly open connections anymore through the driver manager, but you ask data source instead. The first time we ask our Hikari data source for a database connection, it will initialize the pool behind the scenes, which means opening up by default 10 database connections and giving you one of these 10. Great. Now you don't have to worry about the performance penalties anymore of opening and closing database connections. Finally, this article covered the basics of JDBC, from drivers to handling connections and SQL queries to connection pooling. The gist is, when using JDBC, you are working with bare metal. You have the full power and speed of SQL and JDBC at your hand, but JDBC comes with no convenience features. Think about how much manual work traversing a result set is. That's where other Java database frameworks and libraries come in. From lightweight JDBC wrappers to full-blown ORM solutions like Hibernate and JPA. You can get a great overview of all these frameworks in the Java and database framework libraries article. That's for today, and thanks for reading. I'll include this in this tutorial in description of the YouTube. Okay, and let's continue. So we are here. JDBC to Java, an example. Okay, imagine you have a database containing user table from above. You want to write a query that selects all the users from the table and converts them to a list of users, a list of Java objects. A small spoiler, JDBC does not help you at all converting from SQL to Java objects or other way around. Okay, let's create a list of users. When I read the data, okay, I'll do this in reading the data, maybe. Okay, I'll return now, instead of void, the list of users. List user. Users will be a new array list. I have first name, last name, and I'll user add new user with the first name and last name. Okay. I maybe want to also read the ID. String ID as get integer of the ID column. Require type string. Okay. Integer. And now let's do ID, first name, last name. And on the end, return the users array. I want to read the data, store the users, and maybe for each user, for each I'll just print out system out print line. It prints first name and last name. Let me comment this out. So it printed like gibberish, and this is because the user class does not have overridden to string method. Now it should print the human result out. Okay. Okay, we didn't use drive manager and get connection. We actually use data source that we created with this Hikari connection pool. Here we are opening database connection against Postgres database. You should not forget to wrap. Okay, we try resources. So your connection gets automatically closed again once you're done with your code. Great. You need to create and execute SQL statement, which you do by creating and executing a Java prepared statement. It does have a placeholders, but we'll ignore for now. Okay, we didn't use the one with the placeholders. You need to manually traverse through the result set and then create your Java user objects by hand by calling write getters on each result set row with the current column names and type getString, getInteger. In addition, we also conveniently let out two things in our code: placeholder in more complex SQL queries, as you want to protect against SQL injection. Transaction handling, which includes opening and committing transactions as well as rolling them back whenever an error happens. However, the example above demonstrates rather well why JDBC is considered to be a rather low level, because you have a lot of manual work to do to go from SQL to Java. So the summary is, when using JDBC, you are basically working with the bare metal. You have the full power and speed of SQL and JDBC at your hand, but you need to make some you have to make sure to somehow convert back and forth between your Java objects and the SQL code yourself. You also have to make sure to be a good developer and open-close database connections yourself. That's where more convenient lightweight framework comes in, which we'll cover in the next section. Java ORM frameworks, Hibernate, JPN, and more. Java developers are usually more comfortable with writing Java classes than with writing SQL statements. Hence, mainly greenfield projects are written with a Java-first approach, which means that you create your Java class before you create their corresponding database table. This naturally leads to object relational mapping question. How do you map from your newly written Java classes to your yet-to-be-created database table? And could you even generate your database from those Java classes, at least initially? This is where full-blown ORMs like Hibernate or any other JPI implementation come into play. What is Hibernate? It is a mature object relational mapping library which has first been released in 2001. With the current stable version of it's much larger than this blog. Even though countless books have been written about it, here is the attempt to summarize what Hibernate does well. It lets you relatively easily convert between database tables and Java classes without you having to do much apart from initial mapping. It allows you to not have to write SQL code for basic CRUD operations, think creating user, deleting, updating. It offers a couple query mechanisms, probably Hibernate query language, criteria API on top of the SQL to query your databases. For now, let's say these are object-oriented versions of SQL, even though this is a bit meaningless without examples, which will follow later. Finally, let's look at some code. Imagine you have the following database table, which is basically the same table you used in a plain JDBC section. So this is I already have it. You also have the following corresponding Java class. I do have it. Also imagine you download the Hibernate core jar and add it to your project. How do you tell Hibernate that your user Java class should be mapped to the user's database table? That's where Hibernate mapping annotations come into play. How to use Hibernate mapping annotations. Out of the box, Hibernate obviously has no way of knowing which of your classes should be mapped how to database tables. Should the user's Java class be mapped to invoices database table or to users table? Historically, to let Hibernate know what it should do, you wrote mapping XML files. We will not cover XML mapping in this guide, as for the past couple of years it has been suppressed with an annotation-based mapping approach. You might have encountered some of these annotations already, like entity or column or table. Let's have a look at what our annotated user Java class from above would look like with these mapping annotation classes. Okay, user becomes an entity. What do I have here in my POM? I have, oh, I didn't have Hibernate. Was Hibernate dependency Maven. Okay, let's do this one. POM. Okay, let's refresh it. Okay, now entity is here. Okay, user, persistent entity user should have primary key. Okay, table name, it will be users. Okay, it has ID and it has generated value, strategy, generation type auto, and then columns. Oh, sorry, column. Name is the first name, and column that's named last name. It would not be in the scope of this guide to go too much into detail of every annotation, but here a quick summary. Entity, a marker for Hibernate to understand. Map this class to database table. Table tells Hibernate which database table to map to the class. Column tells Hibernate which database column to map to the field to. ID and generate value tells Hibernate that the primary key of the table is and that it is auto-generated by the database. There's of course lots more annotations, but you get a picture. With Hibernate, write your Java classes, and then need to make sure to annotate them with the correct annotations. How to quick start Hibernate. After having annotated your classes, you will need to bootstrap Hibernate itself. Hibernate's entry point for pretty much everything is so-called SessionFactory, which you need to configure. It understands your mapping annotations and allows you to open sessions. A session is basically a database connection, or more specifically a wrapper around your good old JDBC connection. With additional goodies on top, you'll use these sessions to execute SQL, Hibernate, and criteria queries. But first, for some bootstrapping code. In your Hibernate versions, this code looks a bit ugly, and libraries like Spring will take care of bootstrapping code for you. But if you want to get started with plain Hibernate, this is what you'll need to do. Okay, let's go to JDBC testing, main class, standard, service, registry builder. I don't have this class. Let's check out full example of this code. I need Hibernate core, and what I've added is Hibernate core. Hibernate, but I don't see in this version. Let me go to ChatGPT. I can't find. It's called Standard Service Registry Builder in Hibernate 7.4.2. It does exist. Let me see. Let's reload. Okay. Builder. Standard registry equals new standard registry builder. Configure and build. It does look strange. Probably throws exception. Require a standard registry builder. Okay. I'll just. Okay, this is standard registry. Okay, and now here we tell the Hibernate that we annotate our user class. Metadata sources equals new metadata sources standard registry. Sources add annotated class user.class metadata sources build metadata. Okay, and then we create a SessionFactory. SessionFactory metadata build SessionFactory. Okay, but I haven't provided how it should use the Okay, let's see here. How does it know how to access the database? Let's see how basic session works. But this, I think this won't work. Let's create a user. I don't need the connection now. User equals new user. Ivan Ivan testira. Okay, and I'll just add new constructor with just username and first name and last name. Ivan testing. Okay, and then SessionFactory. SessionFactory open session. I store it as a session variable. Session save persist. was save user. This won't work. I don't see this working. Could not locate COG XML resources. Yes. Couldn't. I don't know where do I put the let's see, maybe metadata. Data. Okay, I'll stop here for now and we'll do follow-up session.